I'm Danielle, and welcome to this enchanted house. So lately, there have just been a lot of great books come out, just in general. Not all I'm going to review for this channel, but just a lot of books that deal with like the things that I like to deal with on this channel, like cottagecore and vintage and enchanting things and magic. So today we have yet another book review. Today we are reviewing Hill House Vintage by Paula Sutton. So some background, Paula Sutton is an Instagram influencer and one of my favorite accounts of all time. So once again, here's your disclaimer. Huge fan of hers on Instagram, was really excited when she announced the book, really excited to get it, and really excited to review it. If you want to go check her out on Instagram, I'll put it here and there'll be the link down below so you can go check her out, which I highly recommend. A little more about her. She lives in England. She originally was like a London urbanite, and she and her family bought a house in the country, and her Instagram is all about this transformation of this house to this sort of vintagey, pastoral sort of paradise that she's created for herself. And it's wonderful. It's beautiful to look at, and she's very entertaining just Instagram. So did that translate into book form? Yeah, I really, really love this book. I'm going to say that straight out of the gate. If that's all you need to know is that I loved it, and if you don't want to be spoiled about the book, I guess, you can stop now. But I wish you would come back afterwards and hear my thoughts on it, and we can talk about it below. But, let's talk about Hill House Vintage. So first off, just in terms of some of the basics of the book, it is a beautiful book. It's lovely. It's hardback. It's got some really great colorful layout. There's beautiful photography, both done by Paula and professional photographers, as well as she has pictures, illustrating examples of things that have inspired her. So just great, just a page through and look at. As for her writing, it's really good. I really like it. It's very approachable, but poetic. It's not too flowery, but it feels very personal, and she conveys a lot of what I think she means to convey in terms of feeling, and expresses her ideas really well. So top marks from this English major in that. Of course, I'm American English, but she does use British English. But that's the only, maybe if you have trouble reading. If you have trouble with extra using your words, I don't know. But I really enjoy it. It's really well written. The book is divided into 2 parts. The first part is on Hill House Vintage and kind of how she came into it and the ideas and inspirations behind it and her philosophies in terms of decorating and things. And the second part is divided up by seasons, and it's the more hands-on, kind of project-oriented. So I'm going to talk about them separately. So, the first section, like I said, is really the philosophy behind Hill House, which is what she calls her house in the country. And she starts out kind of documenting this journey from becoming someone who lives in the city and is, this very urban environment, to becoming a country dweller. And, some things, she's always been into vintage furniture, but then she kind of gets into vintage clothing, where before she was very, on trend. She worked in the fashion industry, so she always felt like she had to be on trend, and sort of that transformation too. And that's the one thing I do like about her book, is it's not just about the house, it is about her entire lifestyle, from how she dresses to how she eats to how she entertains herself. So it's very comprehensive and holistic, which is a great approach that I'm trying to take with myself here. So she's also very honest about some of the pitfalls she has along the way and some of the traps we can fall into when we're trying to create these kind of lifestyles for ourselves. Deals a lot with aesthetic. I really like how she talks about her own aesthetic. And so I'm going to read this quote that's from the introduction. That's just a great thesis statement for the book, and just a great thesis statement for how she approaches things. However, while my core aesthetic may be based on vintage, for me, it really is all about the mix, the beauty and the eclecticism of curating your own personal style. Whether that be from pre-loved or brand new items, fills me with joy and can be adapted to suit whatever your budget you have. This is what I hope to show you in this book. The bonus of the style is that it's sustainable, easy to achieve, suits every lifestyle, and doesn't break the bank. So right off the bat, the first chapter is called Living a Joyful Life. And if you've watched my previous videos, when I talk about things like Tasha Tudor, and that was her philosophy, I think when you talk about what this kind of, the people, these kind of people trying to create these lifestyles for themselves, there's always that core, like, this should be joyful. This should be making you happy. This is about finding happiness and surrounding your things that make you happy. And so the first chapter's talking about that was like, yeah, that's perfect. Yay. One of the things that she touches on, I really do appreciate, is she talks about joy is work. I think I don't know. There's always this tendency towards looking for easy answers, and that's just not how life works. Joy is something you have to make for yourself, and because it's something you have to make for yourself, it requires effort. And I love this. I'm going to read more from the book. I hope I am not ruining too much of it. Trust me. Snippets. Really, these are just snippets. There's so much more in this book that's so good. So, I don't profess to have all the answers, nor can I claim to possess the ability to be joyful at all times of day and night, despite the happiness that I intentionally and genuinely portray in many of my images. But what I've discovered is that finding the ability to experience joy takes a bit of work and usually a lot of effort. It involves dedicating time to examining what it is that affects us and acknowledge that this pursuit, self-care, is time well spent. And then she goes on to talk about creative visualization and mood boards and using that as a tool to kind of figure out what you want and your aesthetic, and something I also highly endorse. And she has a really good write-up on it, and I'm mostly going to make you go read it because I do want you to get her book. She also talks about goal setting, which, is something I struggle with, but she has some really good tips on it and how to make it manageable. She goes on to talk about creating a personal nook for yourself, which is what, my term for that's nesting, where you set aside space somewhere, and it doesn't have to be like a whole room. It can be a corner somewhere that's for you, that you surround yourself with things you love. It's very comfortable. It's a place where you can go and meditate and relax and do things that, like, read and write and draw and recharge, basically. And then she really does get into personal style and how to develop a personal style. And this is one of those, this is why I love this book. There's some things in there that I was already doing and I love, but I learned a lot of new things, and there's things I want to try out. And just for this section alone, I really highly recommend this book. So just to give you an idea, again, here's another quote from the book. We're often told to dress for our body shape, but dressing for the dandy that exists in your mind as well is a far better choice on your route to happiness. I've certainly become a slightly more eccentric dresser as I've started to prioritize my own well-being. Choosing your clothes according to convention is too often to please everyone but ourselves. Remember that whatever style you adopt is only surprising the first time people see it. Once you become known for a particular way of dressing, people rarely give it a second thought. So throughout the book, she really does emphasize that this is not an overnight process. She talks herself being a slow decorator and, quietly reaccruing a new wardrobe. It's something I've kind of had to learn. I did dedicate this past summer to going whole hog on estate sales, and it was fun, but I kind of have slowed down now because I found a lot of the things I was looking for, but that was a lot of work and a lot of going out, and it was over a matter of months, stretching back to March, I think. So I still like going to estate sales, but I'm not going to them all the time now. But it was fun, and it was a great experience, and my house feels so much more me for doing it. Anyways, back to the book. So I want to talk about her and what she says about decorating your house. As a style choice, this isn't about buying everything on a single shopping trip, but about taking things slowly and steadily and savoring the evolution of a rich tapestry of layers and styles within my home. It's about being relaxed and not too precious, mixing and matching styles, eras, fabrics, and colors, but also not being a slave to fashion. This is perhaps a tad ironic, since it was the fashion industry where I first began my career and honed my personal style. Country house style encompasses many design elements, but the traditional version usually is based around the idea of using items that have been handed down through generations, reused, inherited, repurposed, or reimagined, which is possibly a clue as to why the themes surrounding the look are experiencing a reemergence today under the new and similarly traditional value-laden name of cottagecore. And she will talk about cottagecore later. But she talks about the evolution of English country style. In particular, she highlights Nancy Lancaster, who was an influential designer in the 90s, who introduced this idea of pleasing decay. So the concept of pleasing decay is kind of like this combination of old and new, but these old things, there's this beauty in this age and beauty in this patina, and the idea that these things are used and well loved. One of the sections I thought was really great and is important and would probably be the most, like I keep saying things are must read, this would be a must read, and for me also, is she talks about her experience as a person of color in trying to enter her work in these spheres of vintage and cottage and English country, and her own experiences with it and feeling out of place sometimes. And once again, I'm going to quote, this is one of those cases where I really feel like I should just quote her because this is her experience, and while it's very educational to other people, her words are the ones that are important. Some might celebrate their style, as with mine, as non-conventional for people of color, and particularly for black people. But what is non-conventional if simply a lack of visibility in a particular space? She then goes on to talk about cottagecore and how cottagecore has emerged and its transition from aesthetic mood boards to lifestyle and how it intersects with vintage and English country and all these other things. And it's a really good write-up, and once again, really recommend it. She then goes into her own style rules for decorating her own house, and once again, highly recommend. Trust me, I want to go through this book detail by detail. So like if you want to talk about anything, you've read the book and you want to talk about anything specific in the comments, I'd love to talk to you guys. Chapter 3 is another gem of a chapter. This is her guide to vintage hunting and finding vintage items. Overall, just a great guide. She gives her own personal story of how, why she's into vintage items and how she began to acquire them. Talks about some of her great vintage finds she's had over the years. Talks about combining modern and vintage. She has a really practical guide. I will say this is very European and particular British focused, and things are a little different in the U.S. in terms of how some of these things work. For instance, she'll talk about car boot sales, which is our equivalent of flea markets, but as I understand it, they don't really have like garage sales over there. But so I have my own plans to maybe tackle that just from the American point of view. But just so you know, if you are not in Great Britain or Europe, your experiences here in the U.S. might be a little bit different, or in whatever country if you are from some other country. But she goes through places to shop and what to expect and how to determine value in a way that's not just, oh, you should look at the price guide, or you should just. It's also, she also touches on, is it going to be something that's going to be valuable to you? She provides a brief vintage style timeline. It's a nice little reference within the book, but I will be honest, if you really were interested in vintage or antiques, it is always fun to go out and research and read about how people used to do things way back when. And then she does present a practical how-to project about how she reupholstered a chair. So there is, like, I should say, the first part of the book, there isn't a lot of that. That's really more for the second half of the book, which we'll get to in a little bit here. But there is that project is in this chapter. Actually, we're part two. I have gotten through the first section, so let's talk about the second section, which is her living with the seasons section. And this section is divided by seasons. This is much more DIY. All right, so each section is by season, and there are projects in DIY, but there are a lot of personal stories and narratives that she tells that relate to the season and how she experiences it and how she celebrates it. So it's more than just the second section is still more than just a how-to book. Also, the DIY varies from sort of suggestions on how to do something and inspirational ideas and places to start to some, step-by-step DIYs and some step-by-step recipes. So the 4 seasons, of course, she goes autumn, winter, spring, summer. Each season is then divided into 3 sections: styling, cooking, and making, which stylings like how to decorate for that season. Cooking is, you know, kind of the idea for a meal, and also in styling there will be like maybe how to do like a table setting, like if you're doing a picnic, or to go how to serve the meal, as it were. And then making usually are some craft projects that you can use to decorate your house as well. I'm gonna say probably the recipes I don't know how the phrases are kind of the weakest part. Because this is not a cookbook, I would not expect, oh my god, these recipes, like, but these are some really good basic recipes to have, and there are some really, you know, interesting options. The one I'm kind of interested in is the Spice Island drumsticks. It just sounds like a good combination, and I haven't yet to try it because I have a long list of recipes I want to try. But really these recipes are to kind of support these meals, these like presentations, and the experience of the meal. So, and I think also there's nothing in there that's really hard, so you're still at a very sort of beginner, moderate level cooking, so it's a good place. That's the other thing is, a lot of this book is very introductory in that sense, so if you're looking for really advanced projects or advanced cooking, you really are still better off going with a specialized book, but that's not the purpose of this book anyway. These are just some nice bonuses that we get with it. So there are some cute projects, like there's some nice beginner projects like a body butter, a teacup bird feeder, which is very cute. Where the actually kind of shines is when she talks about gardening, and once again, this is very introductory and very kind of overview, but she does have some really, Hill House has some really beautiful gardens, and if you follow her Instagram, she spends a lot of time out gardening and creating these gardens. I'm gonna be honest, I would love just to see a gardening book from her. Hi, if you watch this, maybe, please. I don't know. I really like this book, and I would love to see another book. But the gardening stuff is really, really valuable, especially if you're new to gardening, and gives you some great ideas for overviews and really good places to start. I should say that's the one good thing about this book. She's always giving you a place to start. So if this is not something you're familiar with or you're new to it, it's in that sense very oriented to the beginner. But if you're someone who has been doing vintage or been doing cottagecore or any sort of in this sphere of things, it is a wonderful read. You'll get new ideas, new inspirations. This is definitely a must-have book if you are into cottagecore, if you're into vintage, if you want to do this whole Enchanted Life thing that I'm doing. This is like the textbook for me. This would be the book I would definitely recommend that you get. It's available on Amazon. I highly recommend you check out her Instagram. Overall, a great book. Totally worth picking up. Totally worth the cover price. Definitely one you want to have on your bookshelf. I'd love to hear what you guys think. Leave me comments below. Have you read the book? What did you think? If you have questions about the book that you want to know before you buy it, I'd be happy to answer them for you to the best of my ability, because once again, I am not affiliated anyway with the publisher or Paula. I'm just a fan, but I have a copy of the book if there's something specific you wanted to know. Yeah, I'd love to hear from you guys. Let me know. I highly recommend you go check out Paula on Instagram, and while you're over there, you can go check me out too. I post vintage stuff, I post dressing up and cottagecore, and just living my enchanted life, and it's a little more day-to-day over there. Also, I have a Facebook and Twitter, so if you want to catch up with me there, I'd love to see you there too. There are links to all those down below. So if you like this video, please give it a like, and please check out some of my other videos maybe. If you like what you see here, please subscribe to keep up with the latest and the greatest. Thank you for coming to visit, and I hope you guys have an enchanted day. Bye!